Are you the kind of person that sees vulnerability as a bad thing? That looks at your pain and your scars as something to hide away? I think a lot of us do that sometimes. We tend to look at our brokenness as a thing that we don't want others to see. Possibly because if they see us for who we are and we make ourselves vulnerable, there's potential for more hurt and pain. Think about this. You break yourself, something happens, something traumatic happens in your life that maybe you had control over or you didn't have control over. Either way, you're broken. And as time does, will heal us little by little, more and more, depending on how you interact in the healing process. There are some people who are broken, they remain broken, and they never get healed. But for those of us that find our brokenness and we piece ourselves together piece by piece, little by little, if you notice, there are cracks, there are scars in our life. And some of us try to hide those cracks and scars because we don't want others to see us for who we are and what we've done or what has been done to us. So we bear that deep. We hide that away. We're scared. We're frightened of how people will perceive us and if they will look at us differently. Will they still love us the same? Will they still care for us the same? Will they judge us? So what we do with those scars and those fine line cracks, we hide them. We mask them. When I was in Japan, I got the great honor and blessing of living there for a year and really absorbed the culture. And one of the cultural things was the pottery they had. And in this pottery, they would get broken pieces of pottery and mend it back together with resin and powdered gold or silver, and they would fill in the cracks with this gold and silver to make it even more beautiful. And the thing about it is it made the cracks what we would think as the pieces that we don't want to see, those things that wouldn't be considered beautiful, it made them more beautiful. But also made it stronger. Think about this. When we break something, we tend to use super glue to kind of make it, that clear super glue, to make it look exactly like it was before. But the reality is we're never exactly the way we were before our brokenness. Think of for those who've been divorced. If you've been divorced or dealt with breakup or that kind of loss, you're never the same person you were before. Or if you lost a loved one through death, think about the person you were before that death. You're never the same person you were before. Even job loss. Or if you broke a limb, you're never the same person you were before. Even if you got an injury, physical injury. Like I messed up my knee a few years back, and I used to run really fast. I still relatively run a little bit fast, but not as fast as I used to because of that injury. We're never the same we were before, and that's okay. Because sometimes through our weaknesses, we're stronger in other areas. We've learned strength. We might be weak in one area, but we find strength in other areas. And just like that pot, the pottery, the Japanese art, those little cracks being more visible isn't a bad thing. Being transparent, being real, isn't a bad thing. But yet culturally, we tend to believe it is. We tend to believe that if we are transparent and we show ourselves for who we are, that's a negative thing. It's going to find some negative connotation there. But the reality is when we are more transparent, we leave ourselves wide open to amazing potential of great relationship, right? And yes, a lot of us are thinking, well, if I make myself transparent and vulnerable, show my cracks and scars, perhaps people won't love me for what I have to bring or what I've dealt with or what I did in my past or whatever it is. Your past is your past. And I'm not trying to diminish what your past experience is, but your past is your past. You're in the now. You are in the present. And because you're in the present and you're looking towards the future, your past shouldn't dictate what you do and who you are. Yes, it shapes and molds you, It makes you stronger. It makes you wiser. But in the end, the past does not dictate who you are. It should not stop your progress. When we make our vulnerabilities and our brokenness a little more visible, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing as a leader to show that you failed in your past, that you have issues in your past. People don't learn from success, they learn from failure. Success is one thing, and people tend to get over self-confident and overly kind of twisted in their head when they're overly successful. But we learn our best lessons from failure, from brokenness, from hurt and pain. And I'm not saying that you should just desire pain and hurt and broken. It's going to happen regardless. My point is this. As we look at that pottery, as we look at that shape of who we are, don't be afraid of the cracks and scars that you bring to the table in your everyday life. Those things make you who you are. They shouldn't define you in the way of you were defined by that brokenness. They define you if you overcome that brokenness. I know some of us, and for myself, I've caused some of that brokenness. Brokenness is caused by our own poor choices. Let's just call it what it is. I've stolen as a young person, I've cheated before. I've done things, I've lied before. I've done things that have hurt other people. I've lost jobs. I've done things that are questionable. But what we do is we either stay where we're at or we learn from our experience and make ourselves better. And those cracks don't define us in the way that hold us back, but they define us and what makes us stronger to move forward into the pursuit of what we are capable and our potential of what we can do. So my challenge is be vulnerable. Embrace your brokenness. Learn from it and grow from it. And it doesn't take overnight to do so. It takes time. Time is one of the greatest healers. But part of the healing process is you being aware of it and working through time to heal through that brokenness. Because time can also make brokenness more apparent and make brokenness worse. It can make brokenness deeper, depending on how you react to it, depending on how you proceed. It's all dependent on you. So going back to our analogy, the Japanese art, kintsugi, what it's called, translation means golden joinery. It's a beautiful analogy, right? I mean, picture, if you will, this golden art. Our brokenness can either define us negatively or it can affect us positively. That golden joinery, what joins us together and brings out more beauty than not. Because brokenness can either keep you broken or you can find beauty through that golden joinery. That golden joinery, I would picture this as that triumph of overcoming your brokenness. That's what that golden joinery is. Those strands of gold throughout your broken vessel, the brokenness that you've dealt with, is because you've overcome that brokenness, because you have learned, and now you can show others what it means to succeed from failure. Again, our greatest lessons are from failure. Our greatest lessons are from others' brokenness. Think about this. If you've been thinking, well, what does my brokenness teach? What has it done for me? It's only hurt me. I've been hurt. I've been destroyed. I've dealt with X, Y, and Z in my life. What good can come out of this? The good that could come out of this is how you portray yourself to others and how others can learn from yourself, from your story, from your brokenness. So you see, brokenness builds relationships. It doesn't just mend our emotional fitness. It doesn't just mend our mental fitness and helps us being healthy in that. It helps gain that relational fitness, how we interconnect with other people and how we grow and live this thing called the human condition and life together. Life is meant together, and part of how the mending happens, the process, is through others. And how we help others through their mending is through them seeing our brokenness and the transparency that goes along with it. So my challenge to you through all of this is, how are you portraying yourself to others? Are you hiding away? Are you afraid? And I get the fear. I understand that. I've been there. But all the fear is going to do is put a Band-Aid on the broken pottery, which one day you'll just break again, because that's all a Band-Aid does. It's like Scotch tape. It looks fine. It's clear tape and it mends it temporarily. But when you put things into that pottery, into that bowl, it's going to give way and break because it wasn't fully mended. But when you let that golden joinery, that truly victorious past our brokenness, then we can be filled again. And then we can fill others as well. I'm Coach AJ, and you just watched a new segment of Living Fully Fit, in which we talked about being transparent through our brokenness. Living fully fit, not only in our mental status, our relationships, and our emotions. Hope this helps you find that peace and that growth in your own personal life. Thanks for watching. If you like what you watched, subscribe down below. Check me out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share with someone. If these videos don't do anything for you, that's cool. That's great. But maybe you know someone who's dealing with something difficult, or dealing with or struggling with whatever the topic is for the video segment. I encourage you to subscribe. I put new content on here all the time. Also, check me out on Facebook, Living Fully Fit with Coach AJ on Facebook. And on Facebook, I put all kinds of content, discussions, and all kinds of things that are going to help you grow and live a more fully fit life.